Now, the first teenager involved in the murder of Preston Lord has just learned his fate within the last half hour. I'm Tram Mai.
I'm Rachel Cole. William Owen Hines will serve a total of 17 years in prison after pleading guilty to aggravated assault and manslaughter in the beating death of Lord at a Halloween party back in 2023.
Preston was just 16 years old at the time of his death. Hines is the first and the only suspect so far to plea on the charges. 7 in total have now been charged with Preston's murder.
It's certainly a case we've been following closely since it all started.
12 News journalist Bianca Bono was in the courtroom for the sentencing and just walked out of the courthouse. Bianca, what's the reaction been like?
Yeah, it feels like it's a step forward. That's what Preston Lord's family just told us seconds ago. They are out here now kind of sharing their reaction to that 17-year sentence that was handed out by the judge earlier this afternoon. The sentencing hearing lasted for about 2.5 hours. There was very emotional testimony from several of Preston Lord's loved ones, as well as the father and mother of William Owen Hines, one of 7 defendants charged with Preston Lord's murder. He agreed to a plea deal earlier this year in March, and today he learned his fate, 17 years behind bars. 5 of those years are for a vehicular aggravated assault case that happened months before Preston Lord was killed, and then an additional 12 years for his role in the death of Preston Lord. He agreed to plead guilty to a reduced charge of manslaughter. He and 6 others were initially charged with first-degree murder. Now, I want to go back to that courtroom. There was not a single empty seat because so many people from the East Valley, some that didn't even know Preston Lord, but have come to know him through this movement that has started following his death. They wanted to be here today to support his loved ones, but his loved ones did get up and speak before the judge. I want to play a little bit of that emotional testimony from both his mother and father. Take a listen.
Our world has been shattered, and no parent should ever have to endure the pain of burying their child, especially under such horrific circumstances. The loss Preston has left an unimaginable void in our lives, one that can never be filled. As we stand here today, I have no words of forgiveness to offer William Owen Hines.
I still remember the night of his junior homecoming, which was also his 16th birthday, September 23rd, 2023. Little did I know that over a month later, his precious, most beautiful life would be taken. One day I had a purpose to be a mom of 2 wonderful kids, and the next day I was an empty nester. One day I had a happy and healthy 16-year-old son, and the next day I saw him lifeless in a hospital bed. One day I was helping Preston get ready for homecoming, picking out his tie with excitement, and the next I was choosing the one that he would be buried in. No parent should ever have to endure this. Preston's last moments in the hospital will forever be etched in my memory. Seeing him in the condition he was in was my worst nightmare. I brushed the hair out of his face, but quickly put it back, because that's the way that he liked to wear it. I kissed and traced every ounce of his face so I could hold on to every detail, so afraid of ever forgetting. I replay it over and over in my mind.
Not a dry eye in the courtroom as Preston Lord's mother and father got up there and talked about losing their son, trying to put the pain of losing Preston Lord into words somehow. But as I mentioned, not only did we hear from those who were there, who knew and loved Preston Lord, we also heard from those who knew William Owen Hines. And we also heard William Owen Hines speak for himself. Take a listen.
This 1.5 years has been very painful for everyone involved. There isn't one day that goes by that I don't think about that night. I saw the ambulance behind us as I was leaving and immediately knew something was wrong. I felt a lot in that moment. Despite being very intoxicated, I remembered everything. When I saw the news, I knew I needed to let somebody know my involvement. Though I was hesitant, though I knew I would do time, I knew undoubtedly that it was the right thing for me to do. I was not raised to tattle. I was raised to admit when I'm wrong, and I was definitely wrong. I'm here today to take full accountability for my wrongdoing and my own actions. I acted as a follower and not a leader, and that will now result in me doing time.
Now, Hines faced 10.5 to 21 years in prison for all of the cases that he was addressing today in court. Now, the judge talked a little bit about the process that goes into handing down a sentence, the aggravating and mitigating factors that he has to take into account. I want to talk about some of those factors that the judge highlighted before announcing that sentence today. With regards to the mitigating factors, he did note William Owen Hines' age at the time of the offenses, which were 16 and 17 years old. He noted that a person's brain isn't fully formed until they're 25 years old. He also believed that Hines has shown remorse on a number of occasions, something that the state certainly disputed. But when we talk about the aggravating factors here, the fact that this was done with accomplices was a huge point in court today. And then also when you take a look at the tremendous impact on the Lord family. So again, all of that was taken into consideration, and the judge ultimately handed down that 17-year sentence. Again, 12 of those for the manslaughter charge for William Hines' role in the death of Preston Lord, and 5 years for the vehicular aggravated assault case that happened before Preston Lord was killed. So we are going to continue to bring you reaction from the courtroom. I also want to point out the chief of police from Queen Creek, the Queen Creek mayor, they were also here to watch the sentencing unfold. We spoke with the chief a few minutes ago. We'll bring that to you later on. And of course, all of those supporters from the East Valley donning orange today, Preston Lord's favorite color, in support of him and his family. They were there and they are sharing their thoughts as well. So for now, we'll send it back to you guys in studio, but we'll have much more reaction as our coverage continues tonight.
Yeah, Bianca, and I know that you are still standing by waiting for maybe some of the family members and more people to come out of the courtroom. And as soon as we get that, we're going to bring it live. But Bianca, you know, it's interesting you talk about the aggravating factors, the mitigating factors. What struck me was it almost seemed as though the judge, when he was handing down the sentence and explaining why, you know, he got what he deserved, it was interesting because it almost seemed as though the judge seemed a little bit emotional. He was telling him that you need to change in order to survive. I mean, it wasn't just, you know, this is the time that you get. It's almost like he was telling him, listen, in all my years of doing this and of handing down sentences, that you really need to change your life in order to survive.
Yeah, Trim, absolutely. That was palpable in the courtroom. You could almost feel the pain in the judge's voice as he was talking about all of this. I mean, you also have to remember, we had just sat through 2 hours of very emotional testimony, hearing from parents who lost their child. I mean, it's impossible to sit there and not be emotional as you hear the impact that's had on their lives. And then you hear on the other side, William Owen Hines' family speak out. They're also losing a child, you know, for the next 17 years. But there's just so much tragedy in one room, and you could really feel it from the judge as he was talking about all of this and explaining it in a way that everyone in that courtroom could hopefully understand. And you're right, he delivered a pretty strong message to William Hines when he said, look, he's going to be about 35 years old if all goes according to plan when he's behind bars. He'll be about 35 years old when he gets out of prison. And the judge said, you really need to take a harsh look in the mirror and make some changes, because during that hearing today, William Hines' addiction struggles were talked about in detail. His struggles with alcohol and drugs, both of which he said contributed to all of the actions that were laid out in these cases. So yeah, the judge told him, when you go to the Department of Corrections, you're going to have an opportunity to take classes, to get help with your substance issues, and hopefully you can do all of that over the course of the next 17 years.
All right, and Bianca, of course, standing by to hear more from the family at the podium out there outside the courthouse. Bianca, thank you for the live report this afternoon.